Point 4, and I'm almost done, is this idea that we benefit from having shared priorities that link to what matter. Here's the good news, is that, as I said, we have a plan and it's working. It's the Advanced Northeast Ohio Plan, which was announced over a year ago, in which the business community, much of the political community, all of our major mayors, the Northeast Ohio mayors and managers, the city council, so I think you guys are signatories to it, universities and so forth, came behind this plan, which has 3 top-line goals. Remember that dashboard before? We said 3 things. Number 1, average income exceeding the national average. That means we have to put about $1,600 per family. Job growth exceeding national average. I believe that's about 16,000 incremental jobs a year. And no city with a poverty rate in excess of 20%, which would be about 54,000 people out of poverty. Those are the goals. How do we do that? 4 actions. Business growth, and this is where we've been working the longest, and let me just blow through here. Within business growth, it's entrepreneurship, strengthening manufacturing in our core industries, attracting companies, as somebody said, and making sure we have research and innovation. And we got oodles of organizations and initiatives that are aimed at doing that. And the good news is, sometimes people say, oh my God, the alphabet soup, how can we keep track of all this? The good news is that those of us who are funding it understand who's playing what role, and so there's less overlap and keystone cops than you may think. And the good news is we've been at this now for several years, and it seems to be working. You go back to 2003 in entrepreneurship, venture capital. There was a couple of venture capital firms. This is what's happened since we as a community decided to get serious about venture capital. We're now arguably the leading venture capital market between the 2 coasts. We came from dead last in entrepreneurship rankings to being one of the top venture markets in the US. Or people said a few years ago, biosciences, life sciences, it can't happen, we're too late to the game. You've probably heard of a couple of these companies. But look what's happened in the last few years. We made it happen. We can do this. And you look at something, the next wave, by the way, is in energy, particularly in fuel cells. Look at all these fuel cell companies that are bubbling up here. And it's too late. They're already ahead of the game in Western Canada and Japan. We can't do any of this. And we're on our way. So, business growth. Second, the area of talent. And I'm going to blow through these pretty quickly so we can get to a discussion on another one. Talent is the next big mountain to climb. I just love this analysis. Basically, we can't guarantee anybody a job, but we can pretty much guarantee that unless people have education, they're in big trouble. We've got to get people to where they're employable. What this does is it looks at average wages over a 30-year period, and for every type of person, except for those that have a college degree, wages have gone down. If we can move people, and we've got about 24% of our population that has a college degree, 80% of new jobs require some sort of post-high school certification or education. Every person that we get from having a less than high school degree to having an associate's degree has about a $400,000 lifetime impact for that person. That's about $40 billion if we could move, 10,000 people? This is huge. And there's a lot of work underway to do that. Third area, racial and economic inclusion. Some exciting initiatives to do 2 things. One is to make sure that we have more minority-owned firms of scale, and then the second is to ensure that we have access. And if you want in the questions, we can go into the details on that. But where I really wanted to get to in this conversation is the role of government collaboration and efficiency. And I'm going to put 2 exhibits up here, then throw it open for a question. Or 3 exhibits. This is Minneapolis. What those lines show, and Laura, you may have shown this before.
The mayor did, but that's okay.
Okay, the top line is the rate of land urbanization, and then you see the number of households and the number of population. So you see they're tracking more or less closely. Here comes Northeast Ohio. We are gobbling up farmland at about 10 times the rate that we're growing in terms of population. Okay, any business people out there? Okay, imagine you're the business person, you go to your board, and you say, okay, sales are flat, but we need to expand the plant. Okay, well, what do you see coming? Well, they're going to be flat for a while, and so then you expand, and then next year you come back and they say, we're flat again, but we want to do another plant expansion. And you do that every year for 30 years. What's going to happen to that business? It's lunacy, right? But it's inevitable the way our government system is structured. And how does that play out in terms of spending? And you, again, you're living this sort of thing. But if you look at the top line, which is the collective government spending versus population growth and economic growth and inflation, you see that despite the fact that I bet every one of you can tell a story about how you have squeezed the last ounce of blood from the stone that is your budget, right? Making hard decisions about, do you need that secretary or that coffee machine? And yet we still have the rates of spending going up at these levels. And why is that happening? Because we're managing the units but have no control over the system. And so the net result of all of this is, and we're living this, right, is we're trying to repair the old bridge, but we can't do that because we have to build the new bridge. And by the time we've built the new bridge and maybe had a little left over for the old bridge, we don't have money for the stuff we really need to do, which is to educate the people. And so you may not be able to get across the Cuyahoga River, but this is the challenge that we face. So and so we're at the point now where you guys are the largest industry we have. And so, the question. If that is true, and you can see I'm kind of yanked up about this thing, but it's not yanked up in an accusatory way, because what I see and experience is all of these people working so hard within the units in what's happening across. The question is, do you in your heart believe, look, basically the present governmental system and structure is a sound one, and we need to ride out this economic storm? Or do you really believe that the system's broken, and that's why we're broke? And regardless of this turmoil, we really need to be pushing for new solutions. And, I got another slide or two, but I don't need to do that. I just wonder if we might stop and just ask that question there. We're on the hour, but to me, this is the crux of the issue facing you as leaders. Now, you've stepped forward with the Northeast Ohio mayors and managers in your partnership with them on the revenue sharing and so forth, but the question is let's debate this question just for a few minutes and then see what you think we need to have happen next, because we at the fund don't pretend to have the answers. What we've said is we see that this is important and we stand ready, and so we're throwing money behind things in this area. But you're the ones who ultimately know what needs to be done.